Shalom from Jerusalem. This is Israel at War, an update on day 615th of the war. We started on October the 7th, 2023, with the horrific attack and massacre by Hamas. And today, there are still 53 hostages, captives by Hamas and other organizations in Gaza. At least 31 of those hostages are dead, perhaps two additional ones. We are still not certain whether 20 or 22 hostages are still alive. But while Israel is still fighting in Gaza, as well as in Judea and Samaria, Lebanon and Syria, when it strikes targets of opportunity, all eyes are on Iran, the Iranian nuclear file, and on that issue, we are going to have a discussion with our three distinguished guests. So we have Reserve Colonel Miri Eisen, formerly of the Prime Minister's Office and the Directorate of Military Intelligence, right now at Reichman University. Miri, welcome.
Thank you so much, Amir.
We have Dr. Rafael Bardehi, the former National Security Advisor of the Kingdom of Spain, as well as a distinguished expert on strategic and nuclear affairs. Rafael, welcome.
My pleasure, Amir.
So Miri is in central Israel, you, Rafael, in Madrid, and out of Istanbul, Turkey, we have retired Brigadier General Mark Kimmett, a former U.S. Army officer, as well as an Assistant Secretary of State for Political Military Affairs. Mark, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Amir.
So, Rafael, the Board of Governors of the International Atomic Energy Agency has condemned Iran. It has adopted a resolution tabled by three European countries, the United States, and based on a report by the Director General of the agency, another Rafael. You're not the only Rafael in town, apparently, Rafael Mariano Grossi. And Iran has been taken to task for concealing its activities and for raising the suspicion that not all of the activities have been peaceful, which sounds like common sense, but nevertheless, it's in a document just issued by the agency and, of course, immediately denied by Iran. Who are we to believe if you can play the objective observer?
Well, I think it's quite obvious that Iran has been engaged for decades now on a deception strategy to lull the West and Western powers, trying to sell the narrative that they are just researching or producing a program for peaceful civilian use, which is really ludicrous. Enriching up to 60% military-grade uranium has no civilian purpose at all. And working on weaponization, as we know, has nothing to do with civilian use of nuclear energy. So Iran has been cheating, lying, and decepting all the Western countries in the past 3 or 4 decades since they started the nuclear program. And now it's time not to believe Iran again. It's an official document. It's an important document from the international community, from the United Nations agency. And I think it's clear. The question to me is not whether we need to believe Rafael Grossi's team or the Iranian Ayatollahs, but if that's a purpose to increase the pressure, the diplomatic pressure, in order to achieve a better position from Iran vis-a-vis a deal, or is just the result of a logical sequence of events, no? That Iran has been cheating and that they have to become clear in the nuclear portfolio, no? But that's something we will know in the coming months.
General Kimmett, the Iranians are protesting that the West or the rest of the world has been mixing two different, though tangential, circumstances. One is the NPT, the Non-Proliferation Treaty, a regime of which Iran is a member, with both privileges and obligations. And the other one is the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the JCPOA, which was broken by the United States, and therefore Iran does not see itself obligated to obey to that anymore. And they say that while the JCPOA has been broken by both sides as well as by the Europeans, they are still living up to their commitments under the NPT. Can there be a difference between these two regimes?
No, well, it certainly can be, because as you say, the Iranians have said and repeat that they are in compliance with the NPT, and they point to another and other countries that are in many ways doing the same thing as them as signatories to the NPT. Unlike the JCPOA and the secret protocol, there is a lot of ambiguity inside the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. So I think in their logic, they're stretching to the sides of the field, staying within the white lines of the field, to use a sports metaphor, but as close to those white lines as they can. So yes, there can be inconsistency between the JCPOA and the NPT. Otherwise, there would have been no need for a JCPOA, because the NPT provisions would have been sufficient.
Now, Miri, Colonel Eisen, world media has been full over the last 24 or 48 hours with reports of an imminent Israeli attack, or at least preparations for an attack on the Iranian nuclear infrastructure, should the negotiations between the Iranian and American delegations Sunday collapse. Now, this may be a tactic, especially useful to the Trump administration, but it may also turn out to be true. How should one read these reports?
Whenever I hear, yet again, that Israel is about to attack the Iranian nuclear facilities, I like to break it down. For Israel to attack the nuclear facilities inside Iran, let's start with the fact that it's over 1,000 kilometers away just to get there, and then afterwards to get back. That we're talking about dozens, not 1 dozen, dozens of different facilities. That we're talking about capabilities that Iran has said, that the world has said, are deeply underground, that the Iranians have looked around at every single type of attack that's been done and have built the program that both Rafael spoke about, that we're trying to stop in that sense, has been built heavily underground. And I state it like that because I absolutely think that we need to prepare to attack it. And if you need to prepare to attack it, you need to train. So yes, it is a credible threat that Israel has been preparing itself for. I don't think that we need to say from there that it is an easy target, that it's something that we can know what the expectations of the outcomes would be. And I would love to avoid it if I thought in any way that Iran would not go down the nuclear path. However, I'm one of those who I would really like to say for the last 30 years has been involved in watching the evolution of the nuclear capabilities that Iran is trying to achieve in every single one of the different tracks, the way that they have tried consistently to act as if they're the ones who are okay. It's the international community that's wronged, and I want us to look carefully and look at that, and that it should be the world against the Islamic regime of Iran, the world against their achieving nuclear capabilities. And if that means attacking those nuclear capabilities, it shouldn't be about Israel, who has been directly threatened by Iran. It should be everybody involved, and nuclear Iran changes the world, not just annihilates Israel.
Rafael, based on what Miri referred to, the training of the Israeli Air Force and most of the work done by the IAF against Hezbollah, against Syrian assets, against the Houthis in Yemen, obviously, the expectation is that manned aircraft, F-35s and others, would lead the Israeli operation. And this is also based on the two precedents of the Iraqi reactor in 1981 and the Syrian reactor in 2007. But we have only recently seen that the Israeli Navy fired missiles from afar. Maybe Israel has other surprises up its sleeve, not necessarily air to ground, not necessarily all kinetic. So maybe it is not as difficult as the Iranians would have us believe.
Well, yes, of course. But let me say something more general. I mean, I think when Israel has been in the past forced to act because there was no other option, Israel did act. And we can discuss, in the case of Iran, potential attack in the near future or in the medium term, what the efficacy of the attack could be. But if Israel really do something on kinetic or non-kinetic actions, it's because it has no other option. There is no other door to knock. And yes, Miri said correctly that Iran is not an Israeli problem. But unfortunately for Israel, the international community has not been up to the task. And now we have a new president in the White House, which threatened Iran either to reach a deal on non-enrichment and abandon the nuclear program in 2 months, or face dire consequences. Well, the clock is ticking. Let's see if President Trump do something unexpected, as he usually does. Maybe there are other options. Neither Trump, I think, nor the Ayatollahs in Tehran like to have a war, and there may be an extension of the talks. Who knows? It's really, really moving targets to talk about it.
So, Mark, there was a phone call between President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu, and the versions which were heard out of both Washington and Jerusalem were to the extent that President Trump has asked Netanyahu not to attack Iran as long as the negotiations are still taking place. Now, one, of course, can hear the other side of it, meaning that if the talks collapse, which may already take place, happen Sunday after the coming round, it means that there is a green light or at least an amber light for Israel.
I don't think so. Yes, he said 2 months, but he also said he was going to end the Ukraine war in 1 day. Look, the relevant timeline is not 2 months, but the relevant timeline is October and the snapback provisions. And to go to Colonel Eisen's correct comment, this needs to be an international problem. The snapback resolution was an international decision. And that's what, if the Iranians are looking at anything in terms of how much time they have before there is a full international response diplomatically, it will be the snapback provisions. Militarily, the fact remains is that Prime Minister Netanyahu and the government of Israel is responsible for its own security at the end of the day. It doesn't necessarily have to bend to the will of the international community. It can do what it wants and what it must do for the people of Israel to protect their national security. But I would also say Colonel Eisen is also right. I mean, 20 years ago, when I was the lead CENTCOM planner, of which this was one of the plans we focused on, we knew it was a very difficult problem for a combined international effort to eliminate the Iranian nuclear program. That has only got more difficult. While the technology for attacking has got better, more precise JDAMs, F-35, so on and so forth, the Iranians have not been sitting in ignorant bliss, believing that there are no weapons that can hit them. They have been improving their capabilities, not only in terms of quantity, but also in terms of quality of defense. So the U.S. position remains, give us time, give the international community time to negotiate. The Iranians are going to string out this as long as they can. I do not expect to see anything consequential happen on Sunday, either at the talks or as a response to the results of those talks. There is some time, and I think President Trump wants to play this for as much time as possible.
But General Kimmett, isn't there a sort of a game, some sort of role-playing, where the U.S. president says to the Israeli prime minister, don't, and the Israeli prime minister then goes on and does, as you said, what the Israeli national interest dictates, and then the American president is not complicit. He has asked the Israeli prime minister not to do it. Therefore, it is not collaboration. Everybody happy.
Well, that's true, but I truly believe this is not role-playing, nor, as we say, a nod and a wink from President Trump to President Netanyahu, Prime Minister Netanyahu. Nor should Prime Minister Netanyahu believe that if he actually launches, that the Americans will be pulled into this conflict. Donald Trump's DNA is anti-war. He proudly says that he has not started a war. I think he is sincere when he is telling Prime Minister Netanyahu, let the diplomacy work itself out. And I also believe that he's very, he will stick to his DNA, which says, if Israel wants to do this, that's their decision, but don't look to me for help.
Colonel Eisen, the problem of Iranian uranium enrichment, which they insist on, and its total opposite, the American insistence that there will be no enrichment, even though there might be some formula, but nevertheless, it's a problem which the Iranians now seem to want expanded to include other points. For instance, they have now boasted that they have stolen the documents pertaining to the Israeli nuclear project. Grossi, a few days ago, said that he believes that they refer to the small or smaller Sorek nuclear reactor, which is quite open. Many Israelis and foreigners have visited Sorek. It is being used for medical purposes, research purposes, and as Grossi said, it is under inspection by the IAEA. It's not such a big secret. But the fact that the Iranians are now pointing to Israel may mean that they would like to have some quid pro quo. If you want us to talk about our own project, let's talk about Israel's.
The easiest way for all of the different countries in the world to always try to protect their own nuclear interests is by saying, it's not us, it's Israel. I think that Iran, in this sense, is almost pathetic. Israel is not signed on the NPT, Iran is. Israel has been very clear over the last 60 years with a very clear policy. We won't be the first to introduce nuclear capability into the Middle East. I will say that with a little wink, we always say we probably won't be the second. But that's a very clear-cut policy. The Israeli nuclear facility that Iran said that they went into is a civilian facility that is one that is a very small, itty-bitty little nuclear reactor that does very little. I think that what Iran is trying to do, as usual, is to point the finger anywhere else. They don't want us to look into their business. They don't want us to be in the ground inside Iran. They don't want to open up the facilities that they've already done. They don't want to expose the enormous advancement that they've done in the different nuclear paths. This isn't about Israel. This is about the Islamic regime of Iran trying to achieve nuclear capability.
But Raphael, be it as it may, should Israel be worried, especially when the Houthis keep lobbing their ballistic missiles at Israel? Several drones have already hit targets. And after the Ukrainian success, maybe someone else will be emboldened enough to try and hit an Israeli strategic target with drones. So maybe it is some reason for concern.
Yes, of course. I mean, there are risks involved everywhere. But the Houthis are just an extension arm of Iran. If you deal with the head of the snake, as the Saudis put it years ago, you're also dealing indirectly with the abilities and capabilities of Houthis. But obviously, there are risks involved in any actions. Iranians are threatening all the region and the world if Israel or the US or a joint operation happens against the nuclear program, and defenses are up. But this is a game, and I think war is always unpredictable. But we have this recent experience of the strike of Israel on Iranian air defenses, and I think they are not 7 feet tall. So the opportunity to dismantle the nuclear program is there, either diplomatically or through military action. I think after 30 years of waiting for Iran to behave according to the rules of the world, it is time to take a decision. If we can do it diplomatically, good. But if not, I think the time has come where you have to do serious thinking and take a hard decision.
General Kimmett, Netanyahu has been reported to send, perhaps already, two of his closest confidants, Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer and Mossad Director Dadi Barnea, to meet with Presidential Envoy Steve Witkoff ahead of the talks with Iran. But Witkoff is also the representative of President Trump regarding the talks with Hamas, which are being conducted either directly Americans to Hamas or indirectly through Qatar and Egypt. And a few days ago, President Trump all of a sudden put Iran into the, at least verbally, into the Hamas-Israel talks, indicating that Iran may be asked to put some of its leverage on Hamas. How can one mix the two, the Gaza talks and the Iran talks, Iran nuclear talks?
Well, first of all, I think we've got to realize that Steve Witkoff is hosting the American television show, Let's Make a Deal. The fact remains he's working the Iranian file, he's working the Hamas file, he's working the Ukrainian file. So if there's a deal to be made, Steve Witkoff is in the middle of it. He has to trust President Trump. And so if you want to know who's talking for President Trump, it will be Steve Witkoff. However, the Iranians have seen this before, where you try to mix the portfolios. We always went into the talks with Iran focused on three issues. Number one, malign proxy activities. Number two, their missile program. Number three, their nuclear program. And the Iranians are going to categorically reject, in my view, mixing the proxy situation in this case, which is Hamas, with the Iranian nuclear. They'll say, we're not going to talk about it. That has been their standard response through every negotiation they've done since Obama made that a policy point that we would try to negotiate on all three.
Rafael, in the two previous cases mentioned, Iraq 1981 and Syria, actually North Korea, Syria 2007, it was a bolt out of the blue. It came as a complete surprise. There were indications in the press months earlier that there's a problem here, a problem there. Sometimes reports to Congress in general saying that maybe Syria is also a proliferation case. But it was a complete surprise, and it was not even confirmed in the United States until April of 2008 in the Syrian case, in a report to Congress, and in the Iraqi case, President Reagan was quite surprised because in the transition from Carter to Reagan, someone forgot to give them the right portfolio. Actually, it was not the fault of the Begin government at the time. But this time around, everyone is talking about the strike. There cannot be any surprise regarding the action itself, maybe the method, maybe the exact time. or some other details. So it seems as if people are getting used to the fact that they will wake up one morning and there was this attack. How can one conduct business this way?
Well, yes, Amir, I think we are living in an uncertain world, no? Everything is possible. But the truth is that after so many years getting close and closer to the nuclear capability of Iran, the time has come. The International Atomic Energy said that they have increased the path of enriching up to 60% uranium. And if they want and take a decision to weaponize, they can have enough material for almost a dozen bombs in a few weeks or months. So we are not just crying wolf. The threat of a nuclear Iran is there. And that's why it's so important to think through carefully and trying to be, as you said, a little bit creative in the potential actions that can be taken if the diplomatic path fails. No? There are many options. I think they will find a way to surprise everyone.
Yes, let's end this discussion by quoting General Moshe Dayan when he became defense minister on the eve of the Six-Day War, without the Egyptians knowing that it is the eve of the Six-Day War. When he was asked about an Israeli strike, he said, well, it seems to be both too late and too early. 3 days later, it was not too early. For the time being, thank you, all three of you, Miri Eisen, Rafael Badahi, and Mark Kimmett. This has been the Israel at War update from TV7 News Israel in Jerusalem. For the time being, shalom from Jerusalem.
Israel today is in a totally different strategic situation.
Iran wants to use Syria. Russia is trying to save Assad.
Now we have the backing of the Gulf countries.
We need to keep the credible military threat out there.
This is TV7 Middle East Review.